A father walks into the school lunchroom. What he witnessed will make your blood boil. My name is Marcus Johnson, and I'm the father of a 12-year-old boy named Tyler. I'm a single dad, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat after my wife died 3 years ago. I do my best, but I know I miss things. I'm not always there for school events. I can't always help with homework. I'm just trying to survive. I thought Tyler was surviving too. He got decent grades, never complained, seemed okay. I was wrong. What I witnessed when I walked into his school cafeteria, unannounced, unexpected, just a father trying to surprise his son with lunch, shattered everything I thought I knew about my child's daily life. This isn't a story about bad kids or school violence. It's worse than that. It's about systematic cruelty disguised as policy, about adults who should protect children choosing instead to humiliate them, about how invisible suffering can be when we're too busy working just to keep the lights on. And it's about what happened when I finally saw what I'd been missing. It started on a Tuesday morning. I'd been working the night shift at the warehouse, got home at 6 a.m., and Tyler was already getting ready for school. "Morning, Dad," he said, shoving books into his backpack. "Morning, bud, you eat breakfast?" "Not hungry." That should have been my first clue. Tyler was 12. 12-year-old boys are always hungry. But I was exhausted, barely functioning on 4 hours of sleep, and I let it go. "Okay, you have lunch money." "Yeah, I'm good." Another lie I didn't catch. Tyler left for school, and I collapsed into bed, too tired to notice anything wrong. But later that day, I got a call from my boss at my second job, the office cleaning gig I did 3 evenings a week. "Marcus, I need you to come in early today. We got a big client meeting tomorrow, need the place spotless. I'm supposed to pick up Tyler at 3. It's double time if you come now. I really need you." Double time, that was rent money, grocery money, money I couldn't turn down. "Okay, I'll be there." I called the school, explained I couldn't pick Tyler up, asked them to let him take the late bus. They said fine. I felt guilty but told myself this was temporary, just until we got ahead financially. Except we never got ahead, we just kept treading water. Around 11:30, I was setting up to start cleaning when I realized I'd left my phone charger at home. The office was only 10 minutes from Tyler's school, and I had a spare in my car. On impulse, I decided to surprise him, bring him fast food for lunch, see his face light up, remind myself why I was working so hard. I bought burgers and fries from the drive-thru and headed to Lincoln Middle School. I'd never actually been inside Tyler's school. Between working 2 jobs and him taking the bus, I just never had reason to go. Parent-teacher conferences were always scheduled when I was working, and Tyler insisted everything was fine, so I let it slide. Big mistake. I walked into the main office. "Hi, I'm Marcus Johnson, Tyler Johnson's father. I brought him lunch. Can I see him?" The secretary looked surprised. "You brought him lunch?" "Yeah, is that okay?" "Oh, sure. The cafeteria is down that hall through the double doors. Lunch period just started." She seemed uncomfortable, but I didn't think much of it. I walked down the hallway, pushed through the double doors, and entered the cafeteria. It was loud, chaotic, maybe 200 kids eating lunch. I scanned the crowd looking for Tyler. That's when I saw it. In the corner of the cafeteria there was a separate table, away from the others, and sitting at that table, alone, eating what looked like a plain peanut butter sandwich on white bread, was my son. He wasn't with friends. He wasn't laughing or talking. He was sitting alone, head down, eating quickly like he wanted to disappear. But that's not what made my blood boil. What made my blood boil was the sign hanging above the table. A laminated sign, positioned deliberately so everyone in the cafeteria could see it. "Lunch debt table." I stood there frozen, trying to process what I was seeing. My son was sitting at a table specifically designated to shame kids whose parents couldn't afford to pay for school lunch. A teacher walked past me, noticed me staring. "Can I help you?" "What is that?" I pointed at the sign. "Oh, that's the lunch debt table. District policy. Kids who have outstanding lunch debts sit there until their parents pay." "Why?" "To encourage payment. Parents see the policy, they pay up faster." "You're publicly shamming 12-year-olds because their parents are poor." "Sir, if you have an issue with district policy, is there anything else different about that table besides the sign?" The teacher hesitated. "The lunch is modified." "Modified how?" "They receive a basic meal. Peanut butter sandwich, fruit, milk. State requirement is that we feed them. Doesn't specify what. So kids with debt get worse food than other kids. It's about accountability. Parents need to." I didn't let her finish. I walked toward Tyler's table. He saw me coming and his face went white. Not happy, surprised, horrified, caught. "Dad," his voice was small, "what are you doing here?" "I brought you lunch." I set down the fast food bag. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" "About what?" "Tyler, the sign, the table, this." He looked down. "I didn't want you to worry. You're already working so much. I didn't want to add more stress." "How long have you been sitting here?" "Since October." October. It was now March. 5 months my son had been sitting at the humiliation table, and I had no idea. "Why didn't the school tell me you had lunch debt?" "They sent letters. I threw them away. I didn't want you to know." My heart was breaking. My 12-year-old son had been hiding his shame for 5 months, sitting alone at this table while other kids whispered and pointed, because he didn't want to burden me. I looked around the cafeteria. Other kids were staring, some pointing, some laughing. My son's daily reality was being a spectacle, a warning, an example of what happens when your family can't afford things. "How much is the debt?" I asked. "I don't know, a couple hundred maybe." "And they've been treating you like this for $200. "Dad, please, you're making it worse." He was right. Everyone was watching now. I was making a scene, but I was too angry to care. I walked back to the teacher. "Who do I talk to about paying this debt?" "The main office. They can print you an invoice." I went to the office. The secretary pulled up Tyler's account. "Tyler Johnson." "Yes, his lunch account has a balance of $238.50. "I'll pay it right now. We only accept check or money order. No cash, no credit cards." "Are you serious?" "District policy. I'm literally trying to give you money so my son doesn't have to sit at that table, and you won't take it. You can bring a check tomorrow." My son is sitting at a humiliation table right now. Today, not tomorrow. "I'm sorry, sir, but those are the rules." Rules, policy, district regulations. None of it mattered more than my son's dignity, apparently. I went back to the cafeteria. Lunch period was ending. Kids were leaving. Tyler was still sitting at his table alone, the fast food I'd brought him untouched. "Why didn't you eat?" I asked. "I can't. The lunch lady said kids at this table can only eat school lunch, something about district policy." "So you've been sitting here for 5 months, eating peanut butter sandwiches, while other kids eat real food." "It's not that bad." "Tyler, look at me. This is bad. This is really bad. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because what would you have done? You're already working all the time just to pay rent. What's another $200 you don't have? I didn't want to make things harder." "You're 12. It's not your job to worry about money. It's not your job to protect me from financial stress. It's my job to take care of you, and I failed." "You didn't fail. You're doing your best." "My best left you sitting at a table with a sign over your head telling everyone your family is poor. That's not good enough." The bell rang. Tyler grabbed his backpack. "I have to get to class." We're not done talking about this. Dad, please, don't make a big thing out of this. It's already embarrassing enough. He left. I stood in the empty cafeteria staring at that table, at that sign, at the evidence of my son's daily humiliation. And I made a decision. I went home, dug through our mail, and found the letters from the school. Tyler had hidden them in his backpack, but not well enough. There were 5 of them, increasingly stern in tone. Your child's lunch account is past due. Continued non-payment may result in modified lunch service. Your child will be moved to the alternate lunch program until balance is cleared. Your child is now participating in the modified lunch program. Please contact the office immediately regarding your outstanding balance. Not once did any letter mention a lunch debt table. Not once did they explain that modified lunch program meant public humiliation. I called the school, asked to speak to the principal. Mr. Douglas is in a meeting. Can I take a message? This is Marcus Johnson, Tyler Johnson's father. Tell him I need to speak to him immediately about your lunch debt policy. He'll have to call you back. I'll wait. Sir, I'll wait. 10 minutes later, Principal Douglas picked up. Mr. Johnson, I understand you have concerns about our lunch policy. Your lunch policy is humiliating my son. I understand it may seem harsh, but we have to enforce payment somehow. We can't afford to provide free lunch to everyone. Then apply for the federal free lunch program. Help families fill out the paperwork. Don't punish children for their parents' poverty. Mr. Johnson, if you qualify for free lunch, you can fill out the application. I make too much. $35,000 a year is too much for free lunch, but it's not enough to actually live on, especially not for a single father. So Tyler falls in this gap where he doesn't qualify for help, but I can't always afford to keep his account loaded. We have payment plans available. Your payment plan is humiliating my son. You stuck him at a table with a sign over his head advertising his poverty to the entire school. How is that an acceptable solution? District policy requires visual accountability for lunch debt. Who made that policy? Who decided that shamming 12-year-olds was good educational practice? The school board. If you want to contest the policy, you'll need to address them at the next meeting. When's the next meeting? 2 weeks from Thursday. Tyler's been sitting at that table since October. You think I'm waiting 2 more weeks? Mr. Johnson, I understand you're upset, but there's a process. To hell with your process. I'm pulling Tyler out of school tomorrow. We're going to address this publicly, and you're going to explain to the media why you think humiliating children is acceptable educational policy. Mr. Johnson, please don't make rash. I hung up. I didn't pull Tyler out of school the next day. I did something different. I took a personal day from both jobs, money I couldn't afford to lose, and I went to the school with a check for $238.50. But I didn't go to the office. I went straight to the cafeteria at lunchtime. And I sat down at the lunch debt table. Tyler saw me and nearly died of embarrassment. Dad, what are you doing? If my son has to sit here, so do I. Dad, you can't. Why not? Is this table only for students, or is it for anyone the school wants to shame? A lunch monitor approached. Sir, you need to leave. This is for students only. I'm not leaving until you take this table and that sign down. Sir, this is school property. And my son is a student. I'm here to have lunch with him. Are you telling me parents can't have lunch with their children? She looked confused. When I get the principal. Principal Douglas arrived 5 minutes later. Mr. Johnson, you need to leave. I'm having lunch with my son. You're disrupting the cafeteria. No more than that sign disrupts my son's dignity every single day. Mr. Johnson. I stood up, pulled out my phone. started recording. I'm Marcus Johnson. I'm a single father working 2 jobs to support my son after my wife died. I make $35,000 a year, too much for free lunch, not enough to live comfortably. My son's lunch account fell behind by $238.50. For 5 months, this school has been forcing him to sit at this table. I pan the camera to show the sign, where he's publicly identified as a kid whose family can't pay. They give him a downgraded lunch. They separate him from other kids. They humiliate him. My son is 12 years old and his school is punishing him for poverty. Mr. Johnson, turn off the camera. Why? Afraid of people seeing what you do here. Afraid parents will find out this is how you treat kids. You're being unreasonable. I'm being unreasonable. You hung a sign over children's heads advertising their poverty. You made them eat worse food than other kids. You turned lunchtime into a public shamming ritual. And you think I'm the unreasonable one. By now, every student in the cafeteria was watching. Teachers were gathering. This was no longer quiet. Here, I held out the check. $238.50. Tyler's debt is paid. Now take down the sign and remove that table. The table is for other students with debt. Then call their parents. Work out payment plans. Apply for federal assistance. Do literally anything except publicly humiliate children for being poor. Principal Douglas took the check. Your son's debt is cleared. Now please leave before I call security. Are you taking down the table? That's not my decision. It's district policy. Then I'm going to the school board meeting, and I'm bringing this video. And every news outlet in Chicago is going to see exactly how this district treats poor kids. Mr. Johnson, my son has been suffering in silence for 5 months because he didn't want to burden me, because he's a good kid who was trying to protect his father from stress. And your response to a good kid with a financial hardship was to humiliate him publicly. That's not education. That's cruelty. I looked around the cafeteria, at all the students watching, at Tyler, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Tyler, come on, we're leaving. You're not sitting at this table ever again. Dad, I'll get in trouble. Let them try. You're coming with me right now. I took Tyler home, called the school and informed them he'd be absent until I decided otherwise. Then I did exactly what I'd threatened. I contacted every news outlet I could find. Most ignored me, but one, a local investigative reporter named Jessica Chen, called back. Mr. Johnson, tell me more about this lunch debt table. I told her everything, sent her the video. She was silent for a moment after watching. How many kids are at this table? I saw 3 others besides Tyler. And the sign has been up since. Tyler said since October, 5 months. Mr. Johnson, I'd like to do a story on this. Would you and Tyler be willing to be interviewed? Tyler's been humiliated enough, but I'll talk, and I have video. That's enough. Let me make some calls. The story aired 3 days later. Local news, 6 p.m. broadcast. School shames students for lunch debt. Jessica Chen had done her homework. She'd found the district policy mandating the lunch debt table. She'd interviewed the principal, who defended it as promoting financial responsibility. She'd found other parents who had no idea their kids were sitting there. And she'd shown my video, the cafeteria, the sign, Tyler sitting alone, my confrontation with the principal. The response was immediate. Social media exploded. Lunch debt shame trended locally. Parents were furious. Child welfare advocates were calling for investigations. The district's phone lines were overwhelmed. But the school board still defended the policy. This is about teaching children fiscal responsibility, the board president said in a statement. Parents need to meet their obligations. So I went to the school board meeting. The meeting was packed. Maybe 200 people showed up, way more than usual. Parents, teachers, students, media. Everyone wanted to weigh in on the lunch debt table. The board tried to maintain order, but people were angry. One mother stood up. My daughter sat at that table for 3 months. She stopped eating lunch entirely because she was so humiliated. She developed an eating disorder, and you call that teaching responsibility. A teacher, I've worked in this district for 15 years. This policy is the most shameful thing I've ever seen in education. We're literally traumatizing children over money. A pediatrician, food insecurity causes lasting psychological damage. Public humiliation causes lasting psychological damage. You're combining both and calling it policy. This is child abuse. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the microphone with Tyler beside me. My name is Marcus Johnson. This is my son Tyler. He's 12 years old. For 5 months he sat at your lunch debt table. For 5 months he ate downgraded lunches while other kids got real food. For 5 months he endured whispers, stares, and isolation. Not because he did anything wrong, because I couldn't afford to keep his lunch account loaded. I'm a single father. I work 2 jobs. I make $35,000 a year, too much for free lunch assistance, not enough to live comfortably. Sometimes bills come due all at once. Sometimes I have to choose between rent and groceries. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. That shouldn't mean my son gets publicly shamed. Tyler didn't tell me about the table because he was trying to protect me. A 12-year-old child was suffering in silence, hiding his humiliation because he didn't want to add stress to his father's life. That's not normal. That's not healthy. That's what your policy created. You say this is about teaching responsibility, but what are you teaching? You're teaching kids that poverty is shameful, that financial hardship deserves punishment, that if your family struggles, you're worth less than other kids. Is that really the lesson you want to teach? The room erupted in applause. The board president tried to regain control. Mr. Johnson, we hear your concerns, but we have to balance compassion with fiscal responsibility. We can't just give free lunch to everyone. Nobody's asking for free lunch for everyone. We're asking you to stop humiliating children, help families apply for assistance, work with parents on payment plans privately, feed kids the same food regardless of account balance. Literally anything except what you're doing now. More applause. A board member spoke up. I've been reviewing the policy. According to federal regulations, we're required to provide lunch to every student regardless of ability to pay. The separate table, the different food, the public identification, none of that is required. That's just how we've chosen to enforce collection. Another board member. I wasn't aware of the specifics of implementation. I knew we had a lunch debt policy, but I didn't know it involved separate seating and signage. The board president looked uncomfortable. The implementation details were left to building administrators. Then building administrators made terrible choices, I interrupted, and you're responsible for overseeing them. The meeting went on for 2 more hours. Testimony after testimony from parents, students, teachers, all condemning the policy. Finally, the board took a vote. Motion to immediately discontinue the lunch debt table, 6-1 in favor. Motion to require all students receive identical lunch regardless of account balance, 6-1 in favor. Motion to establish a fund to clear all existing student lunch debt, 5-2 in favor. It was over, the policy was gone. Tyler went back to school the next week. The lunch debt table was gone. The sign was gone. He sat with his friends at a regular table, eating regular food, no longer marked as different. But the damage didn't disappear that easily. Tyler struggled. He'd internalized 5 months of shame. He had anxiety about lunch period. He worried constantly about money, about being a burden, about things no 12-year-old should worry about. We started therapy, me and Tyler both, because I realized I'd failed him in multiple ways, Not just by missing the lunch debt, but by working so much he felt he couldn't tell me things. By being so stressed about money that he absorbed that stress. By not noticing he was suffering. "Dad," Tyler said one night, a few weeks after the school board meeting, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you." "You have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who should be sorry. I should have been more present. I should have noticed. You were working. You were trying to take care of us. And in the process, I missed what was happening to you. That's on me, not you. The other kids at that table, what's going to happen to them?" The school board set up a fund. All the lunch debt is cleared. And they changed the policy. No more humiliation tables. What about kids at other schools? What if this is happening other places? Then people need to speak up, like we did. Tyler thought about that. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Always." "I'm glad you made a scene at school. At first I was embarrassed, but now I'm glad. Because you showed me it's okay to be angry about unfair things, that it's okay to demand better, that I don't have to just accept being treated badly." The story didn't end there. It spread beyond our district. Turned out lunch debt shamming was happening in schools across the country. Separate tables, different food, public identification. Dozens of districts had similar policies. And parents were starting to fight back. Jessica Chen's story was picked up nationally. Other journalists started investigating their local districts. Parent groups formed. Advocacy organizations got involved. Some districts changed their policies voluntarily. Others dug in, defending the practice as necessary fiscal management. But the national attention meant politicians had to respond. State legislatures started introducing bills to ban lunch shamming. Federal regulations were proposed. It became a movement, and it started because I walked into a cafeteria and saw what was happening to my son. 6 months after the school board meeting, I got an email from a mother in Texas. "Mr. Johnson, I saw your story. My daughter was sitting at a lunch debt table in her school. I had no idea until I saw your interview and recognized the signs. I went to her school, raised hell, and they removed the table within a week. Thank you for speaking up. You saved my daughter from the humiliation yours endured." Then another from Oregon. "Our district had the same policy. Parents organized. We flooded school board meetings. The policy was eliminated. Thank you for showing us how to fight back." And another from Florida. "I'm a teacher. I've hated this policy for years but didn't know how to challenge it. Your story gave me the courage to bring it to my administration. We're working on alternatives now." Hundreds of emails. From parents, teachers, students. All saying the same thing. This was happening everywhere, and nobody had been talking about it until one father made a scene in a cafeteria. Tyler is 14 now, 2 years since the lunch debt table. He's doing well, still in therapy, working through the experience, but overall resilient. He's even become an advocate. He spoke at a state legislative hearing about a bill to ban lunch shamming. "I'm Tyler Johnson," he said to the committee. "When I was 12, my school put me at a separate table because my dad couldn't always keep my lunch account loaded. They hung a sign over my head that said lunch debt table. For 5 months, I sat there alone while other kids whispered and pointed. I thought it was my fault, that I deserved it, that I was less valuable because my family was struggling. No kid should ever feel that way. No kid should be punished for their parents' financial situation. Food is a basic need. School is supposed to be a safe place. Combining the two shouldn't mean some kids get humiliated while others eat in peace. Please pass this bill. Make sure no other kid has to sit where I sat." The bill passed unanimously. I'm still a single father working 2 jobs. We still struggle financially. Life hasn't magically gotten easier. But things are different now. Tyler tells me things. When he's worried, stressed, struggling. We talk about money openly, not to burden him, but so he understands that financial hardship isn't shameful. It's just reality for a lot of families. And I'm more present. I carved out time I couldn't afford but couldn't afford not to take, to be at school events, to check in with teachers, to make sure I know what's happening in my son's daily life. Because I learned that working hard to provide isn't enough if you're not actually seeing your child. I learned that poverty shouldn't be punished, especially not in schools that are supposed to educate and nurture. And I learned that sometimes making a scene, being loud, being angry, refusing to accept unacceptable things, is exactly what's needed. People ask me sometimes if I regret confronting the school so publicly, if I wish I'd handled it more quietly, more diplomatically. The answer is no. Because quiet complaints get ignored, private discussions go nowhere. Systems designed to humiliate vulnerable people don't change unless someone forces them to change publicly. Was it embarrassing for Tyler? Initially, yes. But ultimately, he gained something more valuable than temporary comfort. He learned that he doesn't have to accept mistreatment, that he has value regardless of his family's financial situation, that standing up against unfair systems isn't just okay, it's necessary. And he learned that his father will fight for him, always, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs me, even when the system tells us to be quiet and accept how things are. That's what I walked into that cafeteria and saw. My son suffering in silence, taught by the school that his poverty was shameful, that he was less valuable than other kids, that he deserved punishment for his family's financial hardship. That's what made my blood boil. Not just the policy, but the casual cruelty of it. The way adults, people who chose careers in education, who claimed to care about children, could look at 12-year-olds and decide that humiliation was an acceptable tool for debt collection. And that's why I couldn't stay quiet. Why I recorded the confrontation, went to the media, testified at the school board meeting, kept pushing until something changed. Because my son, and every kid like him, deserves better. Every child deserves to eat lunch in peace, without being marked as different or lesser. Every child deserves to go to school without fear of public humiliation. Every child deserves adults who protect them, instead of punishing them for circumstances beyond their control. That's not radical, that's basic human decency. And if demanding basic human decency for children makes me a troublemaker, then I'm proud to be a troublemaker. Last week Tyler came home from school and said, "Dad, there's a new kid in my class. He looks kind of stressed. I think his family might be having money problems." What makes you think that? Just little things. He never buys lunch. He doesn't have a phone. His shoes are worn out. He reminds me of me before. What did you do? I sat with him at lunch, shared my food, told him if he ever needs anything he can ask me, that I get it. I'm proud of you. I learned from you, Dad. When someone's struggling, you help them. You don't shame them. You definitely don't make them sit at a separate table. That's when I knew the humiliation Tyler endured wasn't for nothing. It taught him empathy. It taught him to recognize suffering in others. It taught him to be the kind of person who reaches out instead of looking away. Would I take it back if I could? Erase those 5 months of sitting at that table. In a heartbeat, no lesson is worth that much pain for a child. But since I can't take it back, since it happened and we survived it, I'm grateful that it created this. A young man who understands struggle, who stands up against injustice, who helps others because he knows what it's like to need help. My son is turning into someone I'm proud of, not despite what he went through, but because of how he came through it, with compassion, with courage, with determination to make sure other kids don't suffer the same way. That's Tyler's victory, and maybe in some small way it's mine too. And that brings us to the end of Marcus and Tyler's story, a tale not of perfect parenting or easy solutions, but of finally seeing what was hidden and refusing to accept it. Their journey reminds us that sometimes the cruelest policies are the ones that seem most reasonable on paper, that poverty isn't a crime children should be punished for, and that systemic injustice only changes when someone has the courage to make it public. That working hard to provide for your children isn't enough if you're not also fighting for their dignity. What would you have done in Marcus's position? Should schools be allowed to shame students over lunch debt? And how do we balance fiscal responsibility with basic human decency for children? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story angered you, moved you, or made you think about invisible suffering in schools, please like and subscribe for more stories about standing up for what's right, even when systems tell you to be quiet. Thank you for listening. Until next time, remember, children's dignity isn't negotiable. And sometimes the most important thing a parent can do is make a scene on behalf of their child who's been suffering in silence.